my water just broke. I felt like things really intensified.
She was right there and she was coming.
It was an amazing feeling.
I'm gonna cry just thinking about it. I could feel her head.
We heard her cry. We were squeezing hands and she was screaming.
I'm Bryn Hunt Palmer, and you're listening to The Birth Hour. This podcast is designed as a safe place to come together and share childbirth stories. Stick around and join us to hear informative and empowering birth journeys from all over the world. Today's episode is sponsored by Motif Medical. Motif designs insurance-eligible products for busy moms. With a focus on innovation and empowerment, Motif's line of breast pumps and maternity compression garments are sophisticated yet discreet and made to support mothers as they navigate new motherhood. Discover why moms are reporting more milk in less time with the Luna breast pump and see how you can get it covered through insurance at motifmedical.com/birthhour. Longtime listeners know how much I personally loved using the Luna breast pump, and I've heard from so many of you that you've loved it as well, which is why I'm especially excited about Motif's new wearable pump, the Aura. And at the end of today's episode, I talk with their lactation consultant, Ashley, all about what makes this a unique wearable pump. So stay tuned for that conversation. All right, if you've been listening to The Birth Hour for a while, you definitely already know about our online childbirth course called Know Your Options. It's evidence-based, self-paced, and you get lifetime access when you sign up. You can find out all the information about everything in the 12 modules, plus the bonus course called Beyond the First Latch by going to thebirthhour.com/course. And you can use the coupon code 100OFF for $100 off enrollment. Today's guest, Erika, was actually one of our first students back in 2018, and she talks about how she used it for that baby and then took advantage of the lifetime access and used it again 6 years later for this baby. You'll also hear her talk a little bit about how much she loved the bonus course Beyond the First Latch, which you can get on its own or it comes for free with the Know Your Options course. It's all about pumping, storing milk, milk production, all of those things that are really helpful for going back to work, but in her case were really helpful when she had a baby in the NICU. All right, as I mentioned, today's guest name is Erika, and she shared her first birth story on The Birth Hour back in 2018, which was an emergency cesarean. She'll briefly go over that today, but you can also listen to the full story, episode 287, by becoming a Patreon member. You can do that at patreon.com/birthhour, and you'll get over 800 archived episodes there that are not in your main podcast feed. But today she's back to share her VBAC experience, so let's hear from Erika. Hi, Erika. Welcome to The Birth Hour. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Hi, Bryn. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. Before we get to your story, can you tell listeners a little bit about you and your family?
My name is Erika. I live in the Hudson Valley, New York, with my husband, Dan, our son, Tiber, who's 6, and our baby girl, who was born in December.
All right. So I know we want to mostly focus on your daughter's story today, but it's always helpful to have a little bit of background. So why don't you tell us about your journey to getting pregnant with your son and a little bit about his birth first?
Yeah. So before having Tiber, I had 2 pregnancies that ended in early miscarriages. And my pregnancy with Tiber was pretty normal, except towards the end, I found out that I had a full central Previa. So that was interesting. At 33 weeks, I started to hemorrhage and I had to have an emergency cesarean, and Tiber ended up in the NICU for 2 weeks, which I was told was pretty good for a preemie, but it was very scary for us and intense. So yeah, I was told that that's also very unusual for a first-time mom to go through all of that, but here we are. That's what we did. So we waited quite a while between Tiber and having our second because we were really busy. We both paint at weddings and we were just painting all of the time. And we moved from Long Island to the Hudson Valley. So there was a lot going on. And then the pandemic happened. So that was a thing. But yeah, we did eventually decide to have a second. We wanted to be sure that that's what we wanted. And once we started trying it, it happened pretty quickly. And I felt great. I was really happy. I was feeling positive. I felt like I was doing the same things that I did in my pregnancy with Tiber. So of course this was going to go great. But I ended up getting COVID right before I was due to get the ultrasound, the first ultrasound. And I felt terrible. I mean, it wasn't anything serious, but the symptoms were really strange. And we went to the scan afterwards, after, I came out of quarantine, and there was no heartbeat. So that was at 9 weeks. Apparently, it measured 9 weeks, 1 day. So it was fairly recent that the heart had stopped beating. And I'll never know if it was because of the COVID, but
yeah,
it sure seemed related. I had to get a DNC because there were no signs of having a miscarriage, similar to my other miscarriages. But yeah, I wanted to get pregnant right away. And this time, once I got pregnant again, now I had anxiety.
Right.
Now I was nervous again because I wasn't sure if it was going to end in another early miscarriage or if I was going to get sick again. Because like I said, we work in weddings. There are a ton of germs going around at weddings. So I decided to keep wearing the mask, even though at this point in 2023, not too many people were wearing the masks at the weddings anymore, but I was scared.
Yeah.
And at 4 weeks pregnant, I actually did get a virus. I got sick and I had a fever of 102 and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I should take medicine. Is medicine going to cause me a miscarriage? Is the fever going to cause a miscarriage? I don't know. I didn't know what to do. I was so nervous. So I just decided to go to the hospital. They did all the tests and it wasn't COVID. It wasn't flu. So they just told me to take Tylenol and that helped. And, it was just a virus that needed to run its course. But, you start Googling things and that's not great either, because then I found out that 4 weeks is a really bad time to get a fever. Apparently there are high risks during that time for spina bifida and all of that. So yeah, that was causing me some anxiety. And I really had to fight to get an early visit to the OB. They do not want to see you before 8 to 9 weeks. But I told the receptionist about my history and I told her this is causing me a lot of anxiety and she was not happy about it. And she said, well, I can't guarantee you're going to hear a heartbeat, which I thought was a really strange thing to say to somebody who has anxiety and who has had 3 early miscarriages. Like, of course you can't guarantee a heartbeat. You can't ever guarantee a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But I understand she was trying to do her job and she did get me in early. So at the end of the day, it was fine. And I did hear a heartbeat at 6 weeks, which was wonderful. And I heard a heartbeat again at 8 weeks and at 10 weeks. So it was probably too many scans, but it definitely helped with my anxiety. And because we had moved from Long Island to the Hudson Valley, I needed to find a new OB and a new plan. So we did decide, I don't think I mentioned this, we decided on another hospital birth. I wanted an unmedicated VBAC. So I decided that I definitely needed a doula if we were going to do a hospital birth. And the reason we wanted hospital is because of our NICU experience and my medical history. So that's why we went that route. And I knew that the doula was going to be clutch in helping me go unmedicated. So our doula was amazing. She has so much experience and made me feel so comfortable. So I'm really happy that we did that. I happened to have a lot of free time during this pregnancy, which I had never really had before. And I decided to really try to take care of myself and figure out what works for me, what accommodations I can make for myself to lead a happier life. I did different types of therapies. I did yoga. I went to the chiropractor, which was awkward, but just wanted to try all of the things.
Nice.
Oh, and my doula suggested hypnobirthing. So I looked into hypnobabies and I did that course. And I have to say, I was surprised that it was so time consuming. I don't know how most people do this. I happen to have a good amount of time and I still was not able to get every single thing done. But I started feeling great. Like I did not have that anxiety anymore. I just started feeling like this is going great. I'm going to have my VBAC. I'm going to have it unmedicated and it's going to feel like pressure, not pain. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be this beautiful birth that I've been dreaming about. So yeah, every time I went to see the OB, it was always somebody different every time. It's one of those practices where they want you to see all of the doctors and all of the midwives. They had midwives there at the hospital, which was nice. And everything was fine up until about 35 weeks. I met this one doctor who just unloaded everything on me. He was like, oh, I see that you might have lupus. I see that you're 36 years old. I think that you need to be seeing the maternal fetal medicine. I think that you need to get an induction at 37 weeks. They're probably not going to let you go farther than that. Pitocin is going to be your only option. And you might want to consider scheduling a cesarean, because the last thing you want is an emergency C-section. I couldn't believe all of this was coming out of his mouth. And I was just taking it all in, nodding my head. And when I left, I decided that I would never be making an appointment with this person again, because everything was normal. There was nothing, none of the tests came back with any kind of indication that I would need an induction. And I was being closely monitored by all of my special doctors, like my rheumatologist, my endocrinologist. I did end up seeing maternal fetal medicine. Everything was normal. So we didn't need to be talking about it. But they kept pushing for it. I saw other doctors later on, and they were trying to use scare tactics with me, talking about how my age puts me at a higher risk. The longer I wait, the higher the risk is for stillbirth. This one doctor would not let me leave without at least making a future appointment for an induction. So yeah, I really felt forced into it. And I decided to placate her, making the induction, still not thinking that I was ever going to do it. So I scheduled it for, I think it was 41 weeks and 2 or 3 days, something like that, which she wasn't too happy about, but at least felt okay knowing that there was something in the schedule. But now I had the clock ticking. So that really, now I was starting to feel anxiety about it, because I did not want to have an induction. And I think it was at 40 weeks that she asked if I wanted my membrane stripped. And I didn't want any kind of intervention. But at this point, I'm thinking, well, what are the pros and cons? And it didn't seem like there were many risks to doing the membrane strip. And I didn't want to end up at my induction date regretting not having tried it. So I decided to do it, and it was uncomfortable, but I've been through worse, so it wasn't a big deal. And my girlfriend told me that she had it done, and she went into labor that night. So I was feeling great about it afterwards, until the next day when I still hadn't gone into labor. And then I started feeling a depression here. So I don't know if it worked or didn't work, but I didn't go into labor that night. And a few days later, it was 40 weeks, 3 days, my water broke, or so I thought. So maybe the membrane strip helped. I don't know. But yeah, so I thought that my water had broke. I was actually still sleeping in the same bed as my son at this point. So I got up and woke up my husband and started getting everything ready for my son's day at school. I started getting all of his food ready. He has very specific needs for what he eats. So I wanted to get everything correct. This is at about 2:30 in the morning, by the way. And it was difficult. I was surprised. The contractions were 2 to 3 minutes apart, and I thought, oh, that's pretty close. And I was able to make his lunch, but it was taking forever because I just was not able to handle the contractions the way I thought I would. I was not able to tap into the hypnobirthing, the hypnosis, the orange hypno anesthesia. Nope. Where did that go? I was trying, but it just was not coming. But it really did help me focus. It helped me stay calm. And that's really important. So, this is kind of funny. I had been so concerned about snacks, about getting all of the snacks together. I thought, my husband's going to need a lot of snacks. The doula is going to need snacks. Hypno Baby says that you need to bring snacks for the nursing staff. I'm going to need snacks. Okay, nobody needed snacks. So if anybody's worried about that, just don't. Because what ended up happening was that I was throwing up everything. I couldn't eat anything, which was a huge surprise to me. My husband actually wasn't feeling great either, so he wasn't eating snacks. My doula brought her own snacks, and the nursing staff, I don't know. I just wasn't worried about it at that time when I was in labor. It was like the last thing on my mind. So if you're worried about snacks, don't. Okay, so at about 10:30, we called the doula over, and she asked if we wanted to go to the hospital. I think my contractions were like 4 to 5 minutes apart at this point. And the hospital is about 45 minutes from us and you have to cross a bridge. So I thought, yeah, I just kind of want to get over there, even though my initial plan was to stay at home as long as possible. I just kind of wanted to get the ball rolling. The only problem is the transition from our house to the hospital really slowed down the contractions even more. And I guess that was concerning to the midwife once we got there, because one of the first things she says to me is, okay, so we're going to be starting with Pitocin. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I just got here. There's no reason to be starting Pitocin. I didn't say that. I think I said something like, I'm not interested in Pitocin. And she said, okay, well, it's only a matter of time. Okay, great. So now I have this pressure from this midwife. And to top things off, the on-call doctor that day was that same male doctor who was just word vomiting all the things that could go wrong with and scheduling it. Why don't you schedule a cesarean? So yeah, it wasn't my favorite team, but the nurse was incredible. And she knew how I felt about these people. And my doula was there. My husband was there. So they really took care of me and tried not to let these people into my room unless they really had to be there. I actually ended up never seeing the doctor, which was pretty nice. I did a lot of moaning to help me cope. I guess that helped. I don't know. I couldn't really find any one position that was helping. I just could not get that orange hypno anesthesia. Where did it go? But I did feel extremely focused and I just had no doubts. I did not doubt for a second that I was going to be able to do this without an induction. It was just a matter of whether they were going to allow me the time to do it. I got into the birth tub at one point. That was weird. Did not like the feeling of being wet and also in pain at the same time. In the tub anyway, because actually I tried the shower and my doula used the shower head on the pretty hot setting to, I guess, massage my lower back. And that was amazing. And I did that for, I don't know how long, a really long time. And I'm pretty sure that I transitioned while she was doing that. Although the transition really didn't feel like what I imagined it was going to feel like. It didn't feel much different from any other contraction, except that it was closer together. The contractions were closer together. But yeah, I just thought it was going to be a lot harder, I guess. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was hard. But I don't know, I guess the hypnobirthing certainly did help with pain management, even though it wasn't the way that I imagined it was going to help. So at about 4 p.m., I was ready to start pushing, and I loved the pushing phase, at least in the beginning, not so much in the end, but it just didn't feel as painful. It was a big relief. That's what it felt like. I could kind of, I don't know, it was like a different way of handling the contractions, which was nice. But I didn't know what I was doing. So thank goodness the doula was there to kind of explain to me what I needed to do, because I don't know. I'm not sure if I would have been able to do it without her. I pushed for like half an hour. And then at 4:30, I really was starting to get into it. And the problem was my contractions were now not closer than about 5 minutes apart. And, the midwife was skeptical that this was going to work out, because she just kept telling me, you need to get these contractions closer together. You need to. And I'm like, well, I don't have any control over that, lady. But the doula suggested that maybe I was a little too relaxed. I don't know. So we tried shutting off the meditations and just putting on some music. It really didn't make a difference. So I guess it wasn't that. I don't know. But I just kept going. We just kept pushing, even though the contractions weren't close together. I just stayed in my zone. I think my eyes were closed the whole time. I tried different positions. At first I tried the birthing stool, but I'm pretty short. So that didn't work out great because my legs weren't really able to push on the ground. Doula put something under my feet, but yeah, it just was it wasn't right for me. I tried hands and knees, side lying. And then finally, the midwife suggested that I get on my back, which I thought was against everything that I was taught to do. But apparently it wasn't exactly it wasn't like a flat back. My doula told me that I needed to kind of curve in and lift my back in order to push. So it was fine. And at that point, I was really willing to try anything because I was so uncomfortable. And I stopped being able to feel my contractions at this point, which I thought was crazy because everything that I had learned about was pushing for mother-led pushing. Like that was the best thing. You need to listen to your body and you'll know when to push. You'll know what to do. I felt like I didn't know what to do when I couldn't feel when the contractions were happening. And I just wanted them to tell me when I need to push. But yeah, I ended up just guessing, and I guess I guessed correctly because eventually the baby did come out and I didn't feel that ring of fire. It just kind of felt like a constant crazy pressure, and her hand was next to her face. So I did get a 1st-degree tear, but nothing major. And I had put in my birth plan that I wanted to catch the baby or that my husband could do it. And we kind of knew that this midwife wasn't too keen on that either, but it was fine. I didn't fight for it because I really was so tired. I did not feel like reaching down and catching the baby. I had my eyes closed the whole time. She told me that I could touch the baby once she started seeing the head, and I kind of didn't even really want to. I was like, oh, okay. I put my hand there and it was just kind of wet and squishy. I didn't know what I was touching. So yeah, I was fine with not catching the baby. She came out and I was very happy, but immediately terrified because what seemed like violently shaking her, I guess they weren't doing anything unsafe, but she wasn't crying. So they were trying to, I guess they weren't shaking her. They were rubbing her, trying to get her to cry, which was very scary. But she did cry eventually. It was probably pretty quick, but, it felt like forever. And they put her right on my chest, which was so lovely because I did not get that with my son at all. And I was pretty anxious about just putting her right to the breast right away because I had so many issues with milk production, having not had the opportunity to breastfeed my son in the NICU until a few days after he was born. I didn't get that bonding time with him. And so I had been envisioning this golden hour to be the bonding time with me and my baby and just like this lovely experience. And it was lovely, but I don't feel like I bond right away with my babies. I need a little bit of time to kind of get to know them, to figure them out. They figure me out. And I think that's fine. So if anyone feels, strange about not having that experience, it's perfectly normal. At least for me, it is. My doula called it Instagram versus reality moment, which, yeah, is pretty accurate. But yeah, because I had asked for no Pitocin, however, I was bleeding a lot more than normal, I guess. So they did still want to give me Pitocin, and they said they could do it in a shot instead of the IV because there would be a little bit less Pitocin and see if that worked to help stop the bleeding. And it did. So that was good. She was born at 6:36, so it was about 2.5 hours of pushing, but more like 2 hours of real pushing. But yeah, I didn't have any sense of time, so it didn't feel like a long amount of time pushing. It just felt like, I don't know, I had nothing to compare it to, so it all felt normal and fine to me. Difficult, but fine. And I didn't feel like this ecstasy that I thought I was going to be feeling with the hypnobirthing and having had my unmedicated VBAC, but I certainly did feel relief. I felt so much relief that I didn't have to have that NICU experience again, that my daughter didn't have to go through all of that we could nurse right away. It was just night and day.
Yeah. I feel like when you've been through the NICU experience once too, it's just such a different postpartum in the hospital and obviously longer term as well. But how was the rest of your stay there? And then let's talk about going home.
The first night was magical, I have to say. The first night was something that I would have never imagined. She slept pretty much the whole night.
Oh, good. I love hearing that.
I know you're supposed to wake them up every few hours, but I just didn't. And it was wonderful.
Yeah.
But the next day, and apparently this is a thing, The second night was awful.
Oh, no.
It was waking up every 45 minutes. It was just terrible. And I was alone the second night because my husband had a wedding that night. So yeah, I guess that's a thing. And if you don't know about it, now you do. And what I didn't mention, the second day, apparently you're supposed to be counting all of the wet diapers. And I had not been paying that much attention. And there had been one diaper change that was done by my husband. And I asked him if it was wet or not. And he didn't remember exactly, wasn't 100% sure. So I told the pediatrician that came in, I was like, I don't think that she's gone in quite a while. And the pediatrician said, oh, well, that could be a problem. So what's going to happen is if we don't see a soiled diaper by 6 p.m., we're going to need to give her a lot of formula and to see if there's something wrong with her system, that she's not, processing the milk. And then it's possible we'll need to do a bunch of blood tests. So I was like, oh my God, this is crazy.
Oh my gosh, so stressful.
I start looking through the garbage to find this one diaper that my husband had changed to make sure that there was nothing in it, because I did not want to have to put her through all of that if it was unnecessary. And I found it. I was so happy. I found it and it was soiled. So problem solved, but it was a close one. And yeah, that was pretty much it. That was my hospital experience. And it was so different from my birth with my son. I just feel so grateful that it all worked out that way. When we came home, the postpartum, not even comparable to the postpartum after having a surgery. It was just everything was so much easier. And this baby, I have to say, was so much easier as well, because she did eventually sleep much more easily than Tiber ever did. I mean, right now, she's going to be turning 6 months. It's not going so great, the whole sleep thing, but at least initially, it was much different than I had envisioned. She was sleeping pretty well. When I brought her home, I was kind of immediately overwhelmed with having two humans that I have to take care of and split my attention. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. I guess it took a few weeks to adjust my mentality, and it was a big change for everybody. But just seeing our son with her was so beautiful. He is the best big brother, and he just always wants to protect her and love her, and he's amazing with her.
Oh, good.
So, yeah, no regrets here. Poor Tybee had to wait all weekend. He couldn't go to the hospital because there was no one to take him. My mom had pink eye, and my mother-in-law was there with Tiber, and she couldn't drive him to the hospital. And he just had so much anxiety the whole weekend before meeting her. But once he did, he just immediately took on that role of big brother, and he's still so awesome with her.
All right. Well, anything else you want to share from postpartum, or do you want to go ahead and share some resources?
So for resources, Hypnobabies, if you have the time, or even if you don't have the time, I still recommend it. Even if you can't do everything, if you can just do those meditations or those hypnosis tracks, it at the very least helped me with my anxiety for sure. And it helped me stay calm throughout the contractions. So if you're one of those people that does not feel the orange hypno anesthesia, it's okay. It really is. It will still help you. And if you're in the Hudson Valley, Beloved Birth and Baby, our doula, Danielle Bianco, is amazing. So definitely reach out to her. And the Know Your Options birth course. I was actually one of the first people to take the course, and it was invaluable.
Always amazing to hear that.
Especially I think it's called something different now, but the Back to Work breastfeeding course. I was watching that while I was in the hospital because, if you have a baby in the NICU, you have to start pumping right away. And I had no idea what I was doing with that. It talked a lot about hand expressing. And once I learned about hand expressing, my milk supply really I think it almost doubled. It was extremely extremely important.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, we changed the name to Beyond the First Latch, partly because we got that feedback a lot that people were using it when they had a baby in the NICU or just had other reasons for pumping, because the course is all about pumping and storing milk and production and all those things. And so those things were coming up for people a lot sooner than maybe when they were going back to paid work. So we wanted people to watch it sooner. So I'm glad that that was helpful to you in that way. And I'm glad that we made that name change.
Yeah, that's everything. Those are my resources.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing, Erika.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now I'm going to chat with Ashley from Motif Medical about the new Aura wearable breast pump. Hi, Ashley. Welcome back to the Birth Hour. Thank you so much for being here today.
Brent, it's great to be back. I'm so excited, and thank you for having us on.
Of course. I'm excited to have you back on to talk about the new Motif Aura. Before we get to that, can you tell listeners just a little bit about you and what you do?
Of course. I'm a lactation consultant, an IBCLC, and I have gone from doing home consultations and hospital visits and working in community service, like with WIC programs and things, to really diving into going behind the scenes and working on helping businesses like Motif Medical come up with great products and really listening to moms and what their needs are, and kind of bridging that gap between the consumer and moms and providing education and working hand in hand with a company like Motif.
Awesome. So we've talked in the past about the Motif Luna breast pump, which I'm a huge fan of. And listeners hear me talk about it all the time because I've tried so many pumps, having had 3 kids and working in this industry. And it's by far been my favorite, but the Motif Aura is very different. So I want to hear about that and kind of how it came about and what's special about it.
Of course. I'm really, really excited to talk about the Aura because it was definitely on the need list, something to really round out what we can offer to moms. And it is our purely hands-free, down to being able to control the settings with an app, a hands-free model that can still stand up to the strength settings that we see in the Luna. So we're able to bridge the needs of a mom needing to sit down with a desktop model such as the Luna, but be able to maybe switch things up and use something that's a lot more mobile and be able to keep up. You say you have multiple children, so being able to still pump and go about your day to day and feel like you can incorporate your pumping goals with your lifestyle and not have to give time up for that.
Right. So it would be considered a wearable breast pump, right?
Definitely wearable, completely hands-free.
Okay. So how does it work with the app and the way the pumping works that makes it just as strong as the Luna?
So to not necessarily be an engineer and know exactly how they were able to manage that, they were able to keep the sound, the decimals quiet like the Luna, the strength settings like the Luna, and they are measuring exactly in line with that. And it also serves to keep it in place. So they have to have a stronger strength setting really to keep these truly wearable with a good nursing bra is my recommendation. But you're able to manually adjust settings with a digital setting on top, so you're able to see it from your perspective as you wear them, what settings that you're currently on. But with a free app, you're able to connect your pump. It remembers what settings that you used and for how long you pumped, and you're able to adjust the settings on the app with just a few clicks of a button to the setting that you're wanting while your pump is actively in use.
And does it hold as much milk as a regular pump?
It depends on what pump you're used to. This holds up to 4 ounces. The Luna, we can use bottles that hold, 6 and 8 ounces. There's a lot of adaptations there. So there is going to be some differences that I think it's important for moms to be aware of when selecting this kind of pump. As an LC, I have to say it should not replace a desktop pump if you're a full-time pumper or heavily reliant as a part-time pumper. But this is a great pump for on the go, traveling, maybe you're getting things done around the house, maybe getting some work done. I know a lot of moms are back in the workplace, maybe not necessarily working from home anymore. So being able to continue on with their routine and still be able to get a pumping session in. So if you have a healthier supply, let's say, maybe you get more than 4 ounces per session per side, this may be something that's not on your radar because it only holds up to 4 ounces. However, if you're doing the typical, what's on average 3.5, 4 ounces per side per session, this is perfect. It's basically to catch an exact feeding on average.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I noticed on the website too that the recommendation there was using it as a secondary on-the-go option. So especially as a lactation consultant, what's kind of the reasoning there with having a desktop pump like the Luna, and then this is a secondary option?
So the desktop Luna is going to be designed for higher volume needs. So if you're part-time or above pumping, so if you're pumping at least half of your sessions, or even pumping full time, and especially if you're pumping for multiples, you need something that's going to have not only the strength settings, but the volume capacity to withstand those demands. That's a very demanding thing to put on a machine for that amount of time spent. Both are rechargeable, so it's not necessarily about battery operations and being able to hold charge. They each have anywhere between 4 and 6 hour charge of continuous pumping, but it's more of volume needs. So it is absolutely, the Aura is absolutely meant to be a complementary type of pumping mechanism, or for the ones who just want something for the occasion in which they might need to pump. Maybe they're traveling. Maybe they are just needing to pump for the occasional, I have a doctor's appointment or a date night or a girls' night out, something that's going to have temporary separation from baby. Maybe you typically feed directly from the breast and hardly ever have the need to pump. This is a great kind of complementary pump to have on hand that's going to get the job done. But it's not something that I would want a mom to rely solely on.
Okay. And I noticed that there's different sizes, different silicone inserts, which I assume is kind of like a flange. And I'd love to hear about that. And also just kind of the feedback you've been getting as far as comfort using the Aura.
So this is something I'm particularly excited about. It's not something that I've seen across the board with other wearable brands, and that is the variety of sizes and inserts. Sizes are important, because we are certainly not a one-size-fits-all type of situation. So the flange itself that is built into the mechanism is a size 29 millimeter, which is a little bit above average for the average size that I see. So we have these really nice, comfortable silicone inserts so that if you do find yourself falling smaller than that 29 millimeter, and we can even talk about how to size properly for that too. But with the model that they send out, they will send 3 different size silicone inserts from 21 millimeter, 24 millimeter, and 28 millimeter. But however, we just found out that we are getting, I believe it's 15, 17, and 19 millimeter as well. So there's going to be a huge variety of sizes that will make this work for many, many moms. And that just makes my day.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I would love to hear a little bit about, choosing sizes. I know it's becoming a very more talked about and can actually be a really complicated thing. So I don't know how in depth we can get, but any tips you can get as far as, when someone's first trying it out.
Absolutely. And this goes with any pump, but especially a wearable pump. You have to make sure that it's going to not only stay in place, but you want it to be comfortable. And then, of course, we want it to be effective. If it's not doing its job, it's a waste of time. So it's just like a good latch. We want to make sure that the fit of your flange is good. And, any kind of discomfort is going to make you a little less receptive to responding to your pump too. So the 29 millimeter plastic flange that's built into the mechanism is comfortable. It's concave. The tunnel is not really long, but it's meant to be up close and personal with you. It's pressed against you firmly so that it does not slip or become off center. And then the silicone inserts make it just a seamless sizing fixture if you need to size down at all. And as far as sizing for your flange, we have different measurement tools that you can find online, but honestly, if you have a tape measure at home, I like to use the ones that, we sew with, the ones that are meant for being able to bend around, not necessarily one of those metallic, very rigid type of measuring tapes, but something softer, and you can measure the diameter of your nipple. and I'm not going to include the size of your areola, the area around the nipple. We're going to measure in millimeters the entire diameter of the nipple and add 4, and that's your size. If you're kind of in between that, you can play around with a size up or a size down and see what's most comfortable for you. But yes, it is the most talked about. It is the highest searched thing that we've seen on our end for flange fitting, flange sizing, how to know your flange size. Like, it is the most searched topic. And I think it is the number one troubleshooting thing that I look for when we're talking specifically about pumping and maybe not getting the output we're looking for. The first thing we do is see, do you have the right size?
Amazing. I hadn't heard that actual measurement technique yet, so that's great. And I'm excited to hear that this has different options, because I tried a wearable, when they were first coming out 4 years ago, and it had me in tears. It was not comfortable. It did not get the milk out. So I haven't been able to recommend it, but I'm glad that things are still evolving, because it shouldn't be that complicated, right? We should be able to have new things coming in this area. So I love that Motif is always listening to the customer and developing new things. And so with those new flange sizes, you're essentially going to have 7 different options, which is amazing.
Exactly. 7 is not something I've really seen anywhere else, and it's really important for me to be able to recommend when a mom tells me I'm using this model or that model and I just can't find the right size. Well, now we're having to outsource inserts, and there's different brands that are wonderful out there for providing those, but it's one more expense. It's one more thing to have to wait on to get shipped to you. It's really great to have this, just automatically have sizes to choose from. And then if you still don't have your size, have something in-house to select from.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on to talk with me. I've been seeing the Aura on social media and, of course, on motifmedical.com, but I really wanted to talk to you so that I could get all the details. So thank you so much for your time today.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I'm so excited to get to share and be able to catch up with you too and get to talk about something that's so new and exciting.
Thank you so much again to Erika for sharing her story with us. I will link to her first birth story in the show notes, as well as in the app where you're listening to this episode, along with links to the Know Your Options course and Beyond the First Latch, as well as Motif Medical and the Aura breast pump. The show notes page is at thebirthhour.com. You can just search for Erika's name in the search bar to find that. And then everything else will be in the podcast app where you're listening to this episode. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, head to thebirthhour.com and click Become a Member to pledge your support. And as a thank you, you'll get an invitation to join our private Facebook group and access to exclusive episodes. Your vote of confidence and support means the world to me.